Dear friends, we will begin the meeting as it's 12 o'clock now, and I'd like to start sharp at 12. I'd like to give a brief disclaimer that the meeting is being conducted in accordance with all the guidelines suggested by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And so we have taken all security precautions for any kind of a Zoom bombing which may take place. We have introduced various security features here, which the Zoom had sorry, I'll begin again. It's 12 o'clock and welcome all of you. And we are beginning this session for today. I'm very happy to welcome all of you. We have an honored guest with us, Mr. Deepak Vohra, Professor Deepak Vohra. He's an ambassador, he's a diplomat. Before I begin this session and take up questions, the disclaimer which is there is that the meeting is held in accordance with the guidelines prescribed by Ministry of Home to take care of any kind of Zoom bombing or any kind of miscreant creating a problem in the meeting. We are keeping the videos and audios off for everybody except for the speaker of the day, which is Professor Dr. Deepak Vohra. We will certainly open the audio and videos in the last question answer session, which will be there throughout the meeting. The meeting is going to be recorded and will be placed on our IIF News and Broadcasting YouTube channel as well as on our Facebook. You're welcome to see it there as well. I would request anyone who has any questions can kindly hold them, raise their hands. I will note their interest and I will call for them at the end of the meeting when the question answer session is there. Before I formally introduce Professor Deepak Vohra, who needs no introduction, who is an authority in various areas and has motivated large number of people, including my own self. I feel highly motivated by him, and it's an honor that we have him with us today. And but we are going to change a little bit. We have been following a certain format since the 15th when we started the meeting. There is going to be a slight change in the meeting format, and we are going to request, because he is an authority and he has written and researched extensively on trust, on life, and how things move, and he has had international exposure, living in various countries, interacting with various top leaders around the world. So we have placed a request if he can kindly brief us at the beginning, and then we will open up the question answers, which I have, following which we will open the house for question and answers to all participants. We are happy to again welcome Professor Dr. Deepak Vohra. Professor Deepak Vohra is the special advisor to various prime ministers, which include Prime Minister of Lesotho, which is in Africa, Prime Minister of Guinea-Bissau, which is again in Africa. I may be pronouncing that wrong. I'm sorry for the country if I pronounce it wrong. Then he has also been with the government of South Sudan and as an advisor. Then he's also the special advisor to Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council, which is there in Leh and Ladakh in Kargil area. And he has been former ambassador of India to Armenia, Georgia, South Sudan, Sudan, Poland, and Lithuania. I'm also happy to inform you he has been actually a public face, a public figure from the very beginning of his joining services. He has been an anchor, a TV presenter. He has hosted n number of shows. He has taken the country's flag high around the globe, taking and talking about India and the contributions India and Indians have been making for decades. He is a popular face. Anyone who has actually been in this area, who has seen television ever, would know his face and his kindness and his words, which has been there. We are very proud to have him as an honorary professor with the Indian Institute of Finance, where he comes and deliberates and also helps in undertaking various research assignments. I'll now move on to Professor Deepak Vohra in a second, and then I will request Professor Deepak Vohra to kindly first maybe throw some thoughts on the topic which we are discussing today, which is the essence of life and growth, and especially because he has been doing extensive work on the area of trust and life. So I would request if he can throw some light on this before I can begin with my questions going forward. Over to you, Professor Vohra.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Professor Vohra.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, the ladies, the gentlemen who are watching the show. Thank you for your gracious introduction, Professor Raman. All of what you said is true. I confirm it. My name is Ambassador Dr. Deepak Vohra, and I've been serving in various capacities. At the moment, at my age, which is now hovering on 69, I'm doing some research in trust as a core value in many societies. The topic that you've suggested, the essence of life and growth, challenged me to think out of the box. So I have a brief presentation which I'm going to refer to. So I may not be looking straight at the camera. I might look at my computer screen off and on, so please forgive me. Here we are starting about, people say that time is money. I believe we are all much richer because the whole world, or at least half of it in lockdown, has a lot more time. This year, we've suddenly realized how puerile we are, how weak we are, how fragile. There's fear and disorientation all the time. I mean, the most powerful militaries and economies in the world were unable to check the Chinese virus. We were so busy growing that we forgot perhaps the essence of life. The world is a much better place. In the 69 years that I've been alive, I've seen enormous change. One would probably describe it as growth. 90% of the world has Bijli, 90% of the world's children have been vaccinated. 1/3 of children born after 2011 will reach their 100th birthday, and India's economy has grown 11 times in the last 30 years. These are all fantastic. They're wonderful time to be alive. But this growth, this phenomenal growth, improvement in physical terms, has this really, really improved the essence of life, which seems to be today happiness and satisfaction. It's quite amazing how depression, disruption, loneliness are growing in what we call the old world. By the way, the United Kingdom has a minister for loneliness because that country says they have 9 million lonely people. Now, the title of your conversation, Professor Raman, it begs two definitions, essence of life and growth. So let's take a look at the concept of growth, both national and personal. National is what we call gross domestic product. I think it's a gross measurement, or we call it GDP. Infrastructure, per capita income, multi-sectoral development, material issues, consumption, manufacturing, etc. Personal growth, self-development, happiness, positive outlook, compassion, helpfulness, etc. I've often wondered, in consumer-driven, consumption-driven economies, why a shirt made in Bangladesh for $1, if marketed under the non-existent Aman Agarwal brand, will probably sell for $2. But the same shirt, if we put a label Armani or Prada or Gucci or Dior, it sells for $100. I just wonder why. Last 2,000 years, all human activity has functioned or focused on materials and markets. That was a great civilization. Oh, wonderful. Why? Because they had a lot of gold and possessions in their life. It was looking for that gold and those possessions that people came out. The Aztecs were one of the richest civilizations. The Incas, ditto, because they had a lot of gold. Let me just point out that this tremendous desire for consumption, it arises from some aspects of our character that I've been reflecting on. Possessionism, exhibitionism, voyeurism, and moreism. These define the core values in every society. I'm not being judgmental to say this is good or bad, but it certainly enhances our ego quotient because everybody wants more. So it spurs us to greater effort. The United States, by the way, I'm told, has 44 varieties of dog food. And an Indian industrialist, no names, builds the most expensive home in the world, $1 billion with 100 bedrooms. Well, happy birthday. Now, the whole concept, Professor Raman, that you and I and your father and I studied in college, this is based on demand and supply. So if I fix X amount of rupees and Y desires, I'm unhappy because I can't satisfy Y desires with my X rupees. So what do? I look for X plus rupees, which spurs me to greater effort. Or I go for Y minus desire. For individuals as well as nations, my growth is easier. GDPs, gross domestic products, growth concepts change. The essence of life is constant. So instead of GDP to measure human progress, may I suggest that we also measure the essence of life through what I call the 3C calculator, comprehensive contentment calculator, based on your physical needs, the satisfaction, your health, interpersonal relationships, family bonds, mental stability, and happiness. Now, this links the essence of life with real growth. You know, in our tradition, there were these sages and rishis who renounced material desires, went off into the forest. I could never do it. But they felt very happy. They were very happy people, very satisfied. We respect them. So satisfaction, I believe, comes either from reducing your desires or meeting them. And as desires diminish, so I've learned during this lockdown, your contentment increases. In the Hindu philosophy, I don't even know if I want to talk about it. Many of you are much wiser than I am in this, but we have these 4 stages. You know, we talk of the brahmacharya, we talk of the second stage, which is grihastha, then we talk of, which is the professional journey. We talk of vanaprastha, we talk of sannyas. Very interesting. The first stage, brahmacharya, is your preparatory journey. The second stage is your professional journey, which is you have a family, you have a home, you produce children, etc. Third, vanaprastha, is your personal journey, when you begin to reflect back on what you've done. And the fourth is sannyas, which is your spiritual journey. This is how I would like to see. You can hop and skip from one to the other. I mean, straight from brahmacharya, you can become a renunciate. You can go straight into the sannyasa level. But there are backward and forward linkages, because when I'm in the grihast stage, I still have to look back at brahmacharya for my children who I've produced, help them. Competitiveness and anger, which remain with us forever, are primordial, powerful human instincts with their own uses. Competition stimulates us to do better. That's the conventional wisdom. But sometimes, you know, competition is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. In the years to come, will our world be a better place or a bitter place? I wish I knew the answer. Finally, Professor Raman, with your permission, I feel that perhaps we could change the title of the webinar. Instead of the essence of life and growth, why not the essence of growth and life? The essence of growth is balance and choice. I've realized this in the 32 days that we've been in lockdown. Life is about making choices. So it's balance and choice, and living with their intended and unforeseen consequences. With balance, we might have a better life. Try it. I'm doing so now. And there is India's eternal wisdom. Asam ne jo paravedi gadiya lagu jaise udhar shari jana vasudhaiva kutumbakam. That we have understood this, that you are small guys who say this is yours, this is mine. The wise always say the world is one family. Thank you very much. I just wanted to share some thoughts. Since I have all the time in the world, I live alone at home. Choice, I must share with you from my personal experience. 1971, when I was operating in a particular part of the world, I made some choices. We were ordered to rush to a particular capital of a particular area that became an independent country, bypassing some of these smaller towns. And the choice I had to make was whether to keep the guys we had with us as prisoners or send them to wherever we wanted to, where we made our choice. We had to be very nimble and agile. Would I make the same choice again? I don't know. But I've lived with that choice for the years since 1971 today. So whatever choices we make, we live with them. And if there is balance in our lives, I do believe we'd be much happier persons. Because American universities, as you know, we went to business school, Aman, to learn productivity, to learn how to improve GDP. Now the most popular courses at Harvard, I'm told, are on happiness. Oh, happy birthday. I mean, this is something quite amazing. People are learning how to be happy. I'll tell you how to be happy. Happiness will not come from 7 cars and 9 televisions and 14 Armani suits. I mean, happiness comes from somewhere else. We could have told you this long ago. You don't need to go to Harvard. Come to us. At the Indian Institute of Finance, we'll teach you how to be happy.
Thank you, Professor Vohra. And if you allow me now, I'll like to begin with the questions. Although you have outlined the 3 C's and the 4 stages, which are critical, I think, and have tested the test of time for decades and centuries, and have been the core soul of the component. But still, based on your own life experiences, personal and professional, for over 6 decades, if I say, because I would say about the first 8-10 years of a child, one generally doesn't remember much, but thereon they do. And given that you have that 60 years plus of experience of life, what are those things based on your own personal experience you feel are the key factors which are essentials for understanding or seeing the benefits of life and growth?
My growth has not been linear. There have been ups and downs. There are moments when I felt very lonely that I hadn't achieved the goals that I'd set for myself. There were probably many such periods in my life. But what keeps you going ultimately, one is the natural momentum that develops. The alternative is to go off into a mountain with a lota in one hand, a chimta in the other, and say, Alat Niranjan. No, I didn't want to do that. There is a natural momentum that comes, and you make choices, you carry on. But then you also begin to realize that contentment or satisfaction or compassion, these are very important values in life which make you happier. Look, we all learned in school when I was studying economics that land, labor, and capital are the essentials for productivity. Today, I believe entrepreneurship has been recently added, but a fifth very important one is happiness. And I learned this when my son was playing tennis at the Nick Bollettieri, the world famous Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy in Bradenton, Florida. And when Mr. Bollettieri himself was training him, he used to tell us, he's a kid, he's a very good player, but he has to be a happier person in order to play better. That I realized the essence of life is also about happiness, not just your figures of productivity and so on. People are telling us that on the productivity index, and I see this all the time, India is at this level, that level, this worker is more productive. Which worker is happier? That's something which we should be looking at. So yes, I did make choices. Some of them were good. Some of them turned out to haunt me. They haunt me to this day. My experience in the Foreign Service has been really amazing. Served in 13 countries around the world, in 6 as ambassador. And I realized that it is possibly one of the best careers in the world. Television was equally exciting. As the Prime Minister said, half of India, आधा भारत बड़ा हुआ है आपको टीवी पर देखकर और दूसरा आधा भारत अभी तक बड़ा हो रहा है.
True. And we also see television every moment, every day, and I hope that remains to be there. You very nicely mentioned about happiness, and that just recalled me the fact that when this Corona drive in terms of protection started, the first video which came out was to sanitate your hands, and how to wash was with a happy birthday chorus. And that was something about, because generally, irrespective of what mood you are in, because I've been to so many kids' birthday parties and others, and you may be thinking anything, but when it comes to happy birthday chorals and when you're clapping and we're then doing things, your mind is all about happiness. And I think that's something amazing which is important. And that's where I feel even the happiness index was as a work given to Amartya Sen by Sarkozy, the former president of France, who actually developed that and built on. And in fact, Bhutan as a country, I'm told,
have a happiness index.
Has a happiness index as a part of GDP, which even our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji talked of wanting to introduce it, and to also introduce the contribution made by women across the streams, despite their being homemakers or working on farms.
One of the things, Professor Raman, that has fascinated me was the 2019 survey of millennial and post-millennial attitudes by this company called Deloitte. I'm sure you've heard of it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fascinating. They carry out a survey of attitudes. So there were 16,500 kids in 42 countries. These are millennials. We give it a time and space definition, time being those born after 1985, right? Who were coming of age around the turn of the millennium. And then the post-millennials, which is born after 1995. And they interviewed these characters and asked them if their attitudes were positive or negative. So they had a scale. Bottom of the positive outlook scale, bottom was Sweden, France, Germany, England, US, etc., etc. Top of the scale, a country called India. Now, these are your young people, extremely positive, extremely hopeful, extremely energetic. Then they were asked, which of these 3 choices is your preferred one? Have a beautiful home, have a tremendous, great, well-paying job, or have a lovely life partner? They answered none of these. Our top priority is to give back to society. That opened my eyes. When people talk about, Hamare zamane mein wo tha, aapka zamana is all rubbish. Oh, happy birthday. It's not. Our kids today across the world, and particularly in India, we are blessed, have a much greater feeling for social and societal requirements than in other countries.
So we have someone from Sweden on panel as well as a participant, and we'll see if we can have a question from her as well coming in. I came across a thought, and I thought, I should puzzle it with you because you have worked extensively with us. Is life inherently unpredictable and insecure?
That's a very difficult question to answer. So many models have been made about predictability, how you predict a fault in some equipment or the other. People have talked about this. But by its very definition, we always have said life is uncertain, full of surprises. And if we could anticipate those surprises, they wouldn't be surprises. I've been surprised in my life many times by people who I thought were, in terms again of the conventional definition of productivity, I thought they were pretty useless, but they turned out to be some of the smartest colleagues I have worked with. And some who I thought were brilliant were legends, but in their own minds. They were not able to produce. So it's very difficult for you and me to make a judgment on anybody. We're not all born equal. Our fingerprints are not the same. They are different. All of us are different. We have our own priorities. We have our own requirements. But at the same time, if we are a team, if we are a nation, if we are a community, we contribute to it.
True.
Ever since we invented agriculture and we moved away from the hunter-gatherer stage, we started living together, right? Because that was the time that you lived in a sedentary lifestyle. You grew your crops with the invention of barley and wheat. Wheat, by the way, in India, barley in Mesopotamia. Now, when these things happened, you began to live together. I'm not quite sure if we've learned to live with each other.
True, I agree. No, in fact, that reminds me of Buddha's teaching on the laws of impermanence. And the single aspect of manifesting reality, as he says, is a state of constant flux. Everything is changing with time and nothing exists permanently. So given that, how do you see that when it comes to the essence of life and growth perspective?
Well, the essence of life is uncertainty. You've said it very beautifully. And I would have, of course, have said the essence of growth and life. Changed it around a little bit, your title. But the essence of life is completely uncertainty. And essence of life ultimately is balance.
Yes.
If you have that balance, nothing can upset you. Take a look at all the statues of the Lord Buddha. You see the equanimity on his face. You see the balance, you see the peace, you see the calm. All this is again the natural momentum. In my first 20 years, in the first 20 years of my life, I was very dissatisfied with what was happening. Then I joined the Foreign Service. For 10 years, I wanted to change the world. And this went on, let me make a contribution this. When I finished and then I became special advisor to so many prime ministers and traveled in Africa, I realized that rather than change the world, let me begin by changing myself. The one thing that the Mahatma Gandhi said, when somebody asked him, Bapu, how do I change the world? He said, begin with yourself. Be the change you want to see. And I can tell you this, Professor Raman, because I've had time during the lockdown to reflect on this, that I'm a much calmer person, a much happier person by limiting my needs. I'm wearing a Nehru collar shirt, but below this I have half pants. Which you can't see. So one can manage quite well with by reducing your demand, by reducing wastefulness. It has been estimated, not by me, for example, but by the Food and Agriculture Organization, that if all the food grown in the world, please mark this, all the food grown in the world were to be distributed, everybody would have 150% of what his needs are. And yet we are told that there are a billion people who are food insecure, whatever that term means. But if 150% of everybody's food requirements could be met by our production, then where is it being wasted?
True.
40 brands of dog food in the United States? Happy birthday. What are we talking about?
True. So how do you see life shaping up? We are living in a world with a lot of opportunities, challenging opportunities. It's always been there in India. As a thriving and an emerging economy, we have never seen a stability or a comfort zone ever. I think whether he's a rich person or a poor person or a person in the government sphere or in the private domain, one is always perplexed with a large number of opportunities, bringing challenges themselves. So how, in these kind of circumstances, how do you see the next 6 months to a year rolling out?
Well, let me tell you something. So many people have called me. I also have this whole series of webinars about the post-corona world. And the questions are all which industries are going to flourish after this scare is over. the Chinese virus, after it goes away, which sectors will boom? So why do you want to know? So we want to invest in that. So again, it's that moreism, that wretched thing, that piece of paper that we call money. We're still chasing that. Look, I am too. I need to satisfy my basic needs. I mean, I get a salary, I get, rents, whatever. Important thing is to know your balance. How many cars, Aman, can I drive at the same time? How many different suits? I mean, if you check it's not that I'm boasting, but because I was on television, if you check my closet, there are probably 100 suits and jackets hanging there. I haven't used them in the last 42 days or 35 days or whatever it is. I just suddenly realized I don't need them. I'm going to give them away. So if you spread happiness, it increases more.
True.
There's no zero-sum game that my happiness is your despair. No, if I share my happiness with you, mine increases. These are lessons I'm learning from the lockdown today. Look at the way the people of India have responded. I say, forget the guys on your television channels. They're only interested in whatever makes them happy. But the people, the compassion. I mean, my wife and I, if I may tell you this, we are both senior citizens. Our children live overseas, and we've taken two decisions, two very important decisions we've decided. One, that we will limit our own wants. And second, that the school that is run in the ashram, named after my spiritual guide, that we will finance for the rest of our natural lives. We will finance the education of one child.
It's an honor. And
it makes us so happy. We are doing it for ourselves, for the happiness. It's not going to break the bank. It won't bankrupt me. We have adequate financial reserves. But it just gives us so much of happiness to see that child's eyes. We are at 85% literacy. We'll be at 100% in 2 years if things go as planned. But to give this child from an underprivileged rural background an English education. Why English? Well, it happens to be the international language today, much as I would prefer Hindi to be. But there is English, and we accept it. You cannot change it, you accept it. And what you cannot accept, you try to change it. That's what we are doing.
Before I open the house of questions, which I'll do in about 10 minutes time, I have a few more questions before you. Is the state of constant change, because change is something which is inevitable and it's always constant, as I say. Is the state absolute and immutable?
Change?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. It's as human bodies have changed, human minds have changed. We are told we are living at the best possible time ever. More knowledge in the last 50 years than in preceding 5,000. Of course, there is. Change is the only constant. This is something that has been said, and there's so much of truth in it. Over the years, over the millennia, we've seen the change come. Human evolution. See, this is one of the things which I tell my friends who are fundamentalists in whatever religion they follow, whether Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, that you want to go back to the glory days of the person who founded that religion. No, thank you. I would rather not live in a desert, ride a camel and eat whatever I can eat by shooting out, killing animals. I'm very happy with the present state of physical development, and I'm totally content. Therefore, change is a constant. You have to evolve. Now, scientists are telling us that if the pollution continues the way it is in the world, perhaps in the next 100 years, we'll have noses that are that big so that we can filter out the rubbish that we are otherwise inhaling. They are telling us that Japanese have, over the last 50 years, on average, become 1.5 inches taller because of the food that they eat. Some countries in the West, people have become fatter because of the food there. So change is a constant to your bodies, but we should also bring the change to our minds.
I agree with you. And we have a Japanese on the panelist, and maybe he has a point to make there which you made. What would your message be to the youth and the students, especially as a success mantra for tomorrow? Because these are very confusing times, and this is a problem of plenty which is existing today in India also, which I was perplexed with when I went to the US about 22 years back, wanting to study and then work with the World Bank. I was perplexed with this plenty problem, like you said, for the dog food. I went for the first time in the mall and I wanted bread. And in India, I would go and buy bread, and there it was so many, and I didn't know which one is my bread. And I had to call back my mom and ask, what is our bread made of? Because they had potato bread, they had this bread, they had that bread. And so this problem of plenty and the digital age revolution is bringing in so complexities for the youth and the students tomorrow, which is the India tomorrow.
We are privileged, Aman, sorry to interrupt, to be the youngest country in the world. My median age is 28, which means that I have 650 million people like you and I below the age of 28, and 650 million like your dad, more than 28 years. I mean, I'm not talking of the chronological age, I'm talking of the biological age. I think the message is very clear that even the most powerful armies, economies in the world, they don't know how to respond when there is an invisible enemy, which we are seeing, the Chinese virus. So they are looking around, they're groping around, they're trying to see how it can be dealt with. The important thing is to maintain this balance and state of preparation. I'm not saying become fatalistic. Ye to hona hi tha, ye meri kismat hai. No, 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 not at all. Strive to improve, not just yourself, but the environment, the community, the nation, the world. That is the hierarchy that you should follow. Whatever you do, since your attitudes, if Deloitte is right, and I'm talking to the young people of India, if your attitudes are exactly what Deloitte has told us, well, we are on the right path. I mean, there's nothing that I want you to change. Give back to society some of what society has and build trust. Sure. That is that's a core value. I'm doing my second PhD. My first PhD, by the way, Aman, thank you for referring to me as Professor Dr. Deepak Vohra. Yes, the first doctorate is honoris causa. Farzi hai. It's given to me to honor me for my contribution to management in Africa. So it was an honorary degree. Second, I'm working on is trust. I'm trying to understand what is this thing called trust. 130 countries I've studied the legal systems. Breach of trust is a crime. What is this trust? Why does it come? I now understand. In the hunter-gatherer stage, when you carried a club on your shoulders, the fellow, you saw another fellow carrying a club, the first thing you do is clobber him. I mean, the instinct was to fight. And if you found the chap was bigger than you, then the instinct was flight. But when we started living together, what was there to prevent the chap from coming to my hut or wherever I lived, my cave in the evening, and clobbering me? I think what prevented him was this feeling of trust. That's how trust grew. That's what I'm trying to research. And as trust goes in yourself, in your family, in your community, in your country, in the world, I believe we'd be moving in the right direction. I do see it growing. One of the unforeseen consequences of the lockdown in India has been much greater trust between the government and the citizens. People are saying, look, these guys, we know what they're doing. Now, everybody has done all kinds of modeling. If we didn't have the lockdown, 200,000 more cases, 500,000, 10 million more cases. Look, nobody knows about it. This is all guesswork. Other day, I saw some university in Netherlands have done some aero modeling that safe distancing, if you are running, should be 8 meters. If you are walking, should be 4 meters. Look, have you dealt with coronavirus earlier? If you haven't, well, happy birthday. Then let me decide what it is based on solid scientific evidence. I've been told 2 meters, I'm maintaining 2 meters. I do not have a degree in epidemiology or virology. I listen to the best people in the world. All this modeling business should stop. Exactly what I've said. There are more experts today on the virus than victims of the virus.
True. No, I agree with, and in fact, I was coming on to the trust, and I'm happy you gave a background for this. No, since you have studied trust and you're still studying trust as a doctoral work, but otherwise also researching, we all keep doing certain kind of researches in our lives. How do you, given the genesis of trust, how do you think we can induce certainty in uncertainty?
That's a very difficult question to answer. How do we bring out certainty in uncertainty? By accepting the uncertainty, by understanding that change will come. Now, what will happen to the world after we've managed to control the coronavirus? If that's your question, sure, we'll go back to our bad old ways. There'll be a splurge, there'll be an explosion of consumerism. All the things we couldn't buy now, we'll rush there and buy them. We are social animals. Digital interactions like this webinar are very good, but we want to be close to people. I want to pick up my granddaughter and hug her. Makes me feel very good, makes her feel very secure. We are social animals. We've developed like that over the millennia. So what is the important thing is for us to understand that we will revert to our bad old ways. Hopefully, we will realize that the damage we are doing to the environment, the damage we are doing to, through this unbridled consumerism, the damage we are doing to our planet, to its capacity to sustain us, that I think each one of us can make an individual contribution.
True. True. I agree with you. Before, 2 more questions before I open the house for question and answers from people.
Please.
And I'll begin with Åsa, who is there from Sweden, and then Professor Ilyasi, who's also there, Ilyahi, and then we'll go on to others. But before I do that, 2 more questions, as I said. One of them is that, do you think growth is the only evidence of life?
Not at all. The evidence of growth is life.
True. And this is life before growth in our title.
I mean, yeah, the fact is that if you're alive, you grow. If you're not alive, well, then happy birthday.
Yes, yes, thank you.
You know, which is why, Professor Raman, I always say that as an observe analyst, I observe and analyze. I look at the next 10 or 15 years. The long term, I won't be alive. It doesn't matter to me personally, which is a very, in some ways, a selfish thing to say, but it doesn't hurt me. I'll be gone. I'll be history. I'll be a photograph on a wall in my son's apartment with a garland around it. But the next 10 or 15 years, whatever I do, let me see if I can make an impact.
True.
However small. I mean, if 1.3 billion Indians each decided that we would reduce our consumption of, let's say, water by 5%, do you know how much of water we would save?
True.
So there we are. It's just a question of choices. Again, I repeat, choices that you make, which lead to a certain balance in our lives.
True. I know you've been advising governments for over 3 decades now, various governments across the globe, including government of India, and even smaller states and all in the country and outside. But, you know, governments around the world have taken a large number of steps in the last 3 months in particular to fight this unknown evil which is prevailing within humanity today and troubling us. Now, what do you think, you know, and one thing which I find a bit different in India is the fact that everyone has tried to give financial packages, financial structures, briefs, but no one has tried to do the emotional connect, and which I'm very happy that our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has been doing from the very beginning, is the emotional connect, whether it is through Mann Ki Baat or through the Connect meeting, which he did yesterday on Panchayat, or when he came first to talk to people, when he's trying to depict how it is to be done. And that's very important, in my opinion, is that emotional connect, because wars can be won if there is that feeling and emotions going behind.
You are absolutely right, Professor Raman. To those of our people, to those of our friends who are joining this webinar from other countries, you've perhaps seen the Indian form of greeting is when we fold our hands. Do you know why we do this? This is also a form of prayer. You do it in your churches or in the temples or the synagogues, you fold your hands. We do it because we say to the other person, the gesture is, I salute the divinity inside you. And if we begin to realize that there is divinity in all of us, which Prime Minister, he has been ranked, Narendra Modi, not that I work for him, please. He has been ranked as the most effective leader. This was some survey done by an American company a few days ago, and I saw that on the net. Most effective leader in terms of dealing with the crisis. Which Prime Minister, in an address to the people, 7 times, folds his hands and says, I beg you to do this. Look at the humility, the emotional connect this man has established with his people. Now, I believe that he's been able to suppress his ego and reach out directly to our hearts and tell us that when he first announced the lockdown, he says, lockdown for 21 days, otherwise India will lose 21 years of its growth. I remember his words. And I think that was very, very significant. We connected immediately. He told us, come out onto your balconies and clap for our health workers. Another one of the unintended consequences in India, we have so much of respect for our scientists, our doctors, our security personnel, our health workers. We understand. I haven't seen God, but I saw him in a hospital wearing a white coat.
True. True.
These are the best people we have in our country and in the world. They are leading the fight, not with guns, but with their stethoscopes and their injections and whatever else they have. And I think Indians have learned the respect for these people. We've always had it, but it has gone up many, many times. We've also learned the lesson that we can do with less. That is another lesson that we've insisted on saving and so on. Now we realize how important that is, to have enough space on the runway, which means if it's 30 months, 60 months, 80 months, well, we should have enough for that. Then the financial packages that are being handed out. People talk about, why didn't you deal with the migrants properly? Well, happy birthday. Why didn't you tell me how to deal with them? You know, with hindsight, Professor Raman, we all have 20/20 vision. But our eyes are not at the back of our head. They are in front. Nature intended us to look ahead and learn. We don't look back in regret or recrimination. We didn't do it because we didn't know how to do it. But now the people of India have come forward. We are doing it. By the way, you know, one of our decisions was this kids' education. Another one that my wife and I took, that one hungry family we will feed every day for the rest of our natural lives.
True.
Gives us a lot of happiness.
Make my last question as I was continuing. I would like to also add here, you know, the police has come out worldwide within the country and outside with a human face, which is very critical because we have never seen this side, neither the movie, whether it is Hollywood or Bollywood or whatever. They have never shown that positive side or the positive side of police, which has come as a rescue to humankind world over, whether it is United States or Germany or name the country, and they have done it.
They've done an amazing job. They've done it. There's a lot of respect for the police, and I was particularly impressed what one of the Delhi police commissioners, one of the senior guys, top 2 or 3, he said, look, to all the people in the nation's capital, stay home because we are out. I think it's beautifully said. He said, stay inside, we are outside and we'll protect you. And I sleep well at night because I know our health workers, our security people are outside protecting me. I've done it in my youth. Now others are doing it for me.
So what is that you think governments could do more, except for what has been done by different governments, to smoothen the induction of growth and happy living?
You know, again, Aman, we will go back, as I said, to our bad old ways. We'll again measure GDP by manufacturing, how many cars, how many television sets you've made, how many textiles you produce, etc., etc. Perhaps we need a new definition. And one of the other fallouts of this virus thing, which I'm sorry if anybody gets hurt, but the UN and the WHO have shown that they are entities whose expiry date was long over. Sorry about this.
True.
But that's how I feel very strongly. And this is not the time to talk about all the mistakes that the WHO made, but everybody now understands that they made mistakes. They lied through their teeth.
True. So I'm now going to move to the question answer session from participants. And I see Åsa, who has joined from Sweden. So I will request, I'll unmute her if she can kindly ask a question. I've had special connect with Sweden in the last 15, 20 years. I've been there almost over 20 times, and I've had the honor to visit the Nobel Foundation function of the Nobel Prize in 2010. It was a great honor because only few people, I think I was told about 300 some people from all over the world, of which many of them are Swedish, or the former Nobel laureates are invited, and there are only few from outside were invited. And I had this honor to address, and not address, but visit and, to witness this honorable ceremony. And my special love for Sweden is always there, having traveled almost about 8 cities in Sweden. So I have Åsa here, if I can request her. I've had the honor to host her here. I request her to ask a question.
Then can you give me full screen for our Swedish colleague? Can you do that, or I have to do that?
Yes. Yes. When she starts speaking, she'll come.
Okay. Skål, ma'am. Skål.
Skål. Cheers. Good morning. Good morning from Sweden. It's actually still morning here.
Hi, ma'am.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for the most interesting session. I very much enjoyed it, Doctor. I especially, a little bit about myself. I'm a leadership trainer and coach. I've been working with leadership development in India, but also in many countries in Africa. For the past 30 years, I've worked in 30.
Give us some better leaders give us better leaders in Africa, please.
Yes, that is, there's a lot of work to do there, but there's a lot to learn as well. And I just had a webinar this week on leadership in crisis. And one of the issues that we discussed very thoroughly there was the issue of trust. So I'm very happy you brought it up. I'm sure you know that on a worldwide survey, Sweden is very, very high up when it comes to trust. And I think I think you're also aware of the fact that we have a completely different strategy when it comes to the corona crisis. We don't have lockdown, and the reason why we can deal with the crisis in the way we do is because there's this high level of trust in Sweden. We trust our politicians. The politicians trust the experts, and the experts, and we trust the experts, and the politicians trust us. So they don't pass a law that we have to stay at home. They trust us that we will be responsible. Now, Sweden also happens to be a country with a high level of GDP, and also with income equality. So I would like to hear your comments, because I know that India is not, when it comes to trust, India is not that. I've looked at the different charts. So I would like to hear your comments on trust and the relationship with income equality and level of GDP. the second thing, I'm just curious because I personally don't own a car. I'm sitting in a very small house on the countryside now, and basically just walking in the forest. I could be in the city running around, but I choose to isolate myself. What you spoke about what is happiness really about, I'm sure you're aware of the gross national happiness that Bhutan has been trying to apply for many, many years. And I was actually part of a group in Sweden trying to apply that, to spread that gospel. I'm just wondering, why do you think that concept has not taken more space in our world? What has been stopping us? So those are my two questions.
I understand exactly what you've said. First, the level of trust in developed countries. I've served in France, I've served in the United States, I've served in Spain, so I'm familiar with this.
But they are much lower than Sweden.
Your government never allowed me to come there, if I may say so. Well, that's not true. I visited several times. I was ambassador in Poland was my last assignment, so we did travel. What I wish to say is that in the developed world, the default reaction is trust. When somebody says that I'll show up at 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you can be reasonably certain that he will be there. My friend Hans Rosling, who you know, our Swedish colleague, late colleague, we used to talk about this at various World Economic Forum and so on and so forth meetings. Trust is built over a period of time. You can't say, give me trust in 10 days or 10 years or 100 years. Societies that are developed and rich, trust becomes the default reaction. Mm-hmm. In Africa, you'll be amazed at the absence of trust. Because the feeling there is that the politician is making money. It's considered the oldest profession in the world. I mean, you know, Satan was also a politician in some ways when he tempted Adam and Eve. So there people tell us that trust, no, we don't trust him. In India, what I'm seeing, if I were to have a scale of 1 to 100 or 1 to 10, Sweden would probably rank 9, Japan 9, Germany 9, even though Germany pulled off the largest scandal in the auto industry in the world through Volkswagen. Still the default reaction is trust because it built over a period of time. In India, we are probably at 4 or 5. We used to be at 1. But the decisive leadership that we have seen in the last 30 days and the government telling us what to do and people beginning to understand that I believe is going to be a very positive factor in the development of trust between the citizens and the government in India. Because the government has shown that it is capable of handling a particular situation. I might disagree. Why have you put me in lockdown? This model says only so many more, this model. You know, these are all political equations. But our doctors and our scientists and our engineers have told us that the best way was a lockdown. We listened to them. Much greater respect is coming as a result of that. Your second question was the happiness index. It's not been adopted by any international agency. Look at those fossils. There's one fossil called the International Monetary Fund. The other one is the World Bank. I mean, whenever they give money to any country, 104 countries have gone to the IMF looking for funding, looking for bailouts. We haven't, because we have the strength to deal with it ourselves. We have the self-confidence. India has not gone, many countries, 104 as of date and counting. When it comes to this question of happiness, you know, how do you define it? Am I happy? Well, I mean, I have a nice house. I have a car, I have a driver, I have a cook, they're well paid, so we are happy. But is there anything beyond that? It becomes very difficult to define happiness. I've spoken to Bhutan Naresh, to the king, about this when we met. And I was not sure that he was very clear in his mind about what it meant. It just says that I'm very happy. The happiest people in the world today are probably some of the poorest. So they're very pleased with what they have. On this happiness, on this contentment thing, or the millennial attitude survey that Deloitte did, right up there with India was Nigeria. Nigerian kids said, we are very hopeful about the future. Oh, happy birthday. I didn't think so. I've served there. I've served in many African countries, and I've seen nobody trusts the politicians there. Therefore, should we change the system of politics? I don't know. I don't have an answer. Should we move out of the democratic system to something else? Instead of an elected leader, should we have a selected leader? I don't have an
answer. Tibet does.
I know.
And everybody accepts it. But if an African chief wants to be the king, we don't accept it in the Western world. But that's another discussion.
That's a totally different issue. I mean, I'm not getting into an argument about which system is better. But what I did want to say is that the handling of the virus, your country is an exception, but you know, the maximum number of deaths are people who are old, white, and rich, in that order. Because they talk of comorbidity, etc. We've done an analysis. The United States is the strongest and most powerful country in the world. The number of deaths per million because of the Chinese virus is 150. The number of deaths in India per million as of 1 hour ago is 0.45. 0.45. People say, oh, you haven't tested. I'm not talking about testing. I'm talking about deaths directly related to the virus. 0.45, America 150. Now, what
but they're fat in America.
They're having big issues. They're having big issues. And then you have Mr. Donald Trump, who, forgive me for that deliberate slip, if I may say so. We just have to understand, you know, as you do, your country I've always held out as an example of something where development takes place because of an unstoppable momentum and people work very hard. You're a tiny country. You produce world champions in tennis. You produce the best cars. You produce the best mobile phone companies, etc. How do you manage to do it? Maybe if I'm given an option in my next birth, God tells me you can't be an Indian, so let me be a Swede then.
Yes, you're most welcome.
Thanks, Asa, and we'll now move on to Mr. Eliahi. And before I move on, in fact, I'm reminded of you know, something which was very interestingly told by an old friend of mine who was the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister 4 times in Poland and brought the reform process there. And this was that when he was visiting and giving a lecture way back in '97 in India at our institute, at the Indian Institute of Finance, at that time he said, when I was taking him around, he says, Aman, I see people on the street. I see people in hutments not wearing proper clothes, not having proper structures to live in, but they're happy. I see happiness on their faces. And this is something which was, as an Indian living in India and being born here, I could not notice, but he did notice that this was there. And it really made me understand what really would be about when we're talking.
As our colleague from Sweden was saying, there is a skewed definition of development. If I'm wearing a Gucci suit, I'm a very rich guy. I mean, that becomes my ultimate goal in life. But you go back to 20,000 years ago, before we led sedentary lives, all the caveman pictures that you have, the fellow has a loincloth. And he was very happy. He was running around with that cloth. I mean, he would take his club, clobber somebody and steal his spouse, which is a jolly good thing. But we don't do it now.
Now we can have request Mr. Eliahi to kindly ask his question.
Please. Where are you? Just introduce yourself.
Sir, Fasi Ilahi, I live and work in Abu Dhabi. I've been here for around 18 years now.
Are you from India, sir?
Yes, very much from India, still with the passport.
No. I just wanted to say Assalamu alaikum to you, sir.
Sir, walaikum assalam. Thank you so much. And
Kareem, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. And it's a pleasure. First of all, you know, asking a question, sitting in front of you, that probably would not have been possible without the corona.
And the Chinese.
No. As you said, and you said happy birthday. I loved it. And like really fortunate to have and you know, experience this panel. So we do a lot of work in actually on the education front, and we have a small foundation by the name of CAM Foundation also. So and back home in India, Haridwar is the place you must have, of course, everybody knows, and near Roorkee. So it's like a hub, but still there are so many children who are uneducated. People are poor, and they are not able to send children to school. So you know, although we try to give it a lot, you know, still we miss out. You trust me, you know, there is no issue on the financials. We've been trying to get that catchment area as much as possible. We have, and the good thing about that area is it has a mixed population. It's not just one community or one culture, you know, and people blend. Still, we are not able to reach there. Actually, this has been like, the school has been around 35 years old. My grandfather established it. But I started the foundation just 5 years back. But, you know, we are still not able to get there. How, like, you know, you with a lot of experience on this panel and people knowing, you know, you are the best people to ask, like, how can we reach out to the basic minimum? because up till 8, government takes a lots of education initiatives. 8 to 9 and like 9, 10, 11, 12 is basically missing. So we want to just get into that area, do as much as we can do.
I understand you, sir. I understand very well. There's no issue at all. And thank you very much. Allah Barafik, Allah Fazak, Allah Salamak to you for the effort that you're making. Look, we used to have, let me give you the thought process in India. We used to have, you would be amazed, and our friend from Sweden would be interested to know this. We had 3 million NGOs working in India, one for every 400 Indians. And then when we started looking into the work that, not yours, I deliberately exclude that. We started looking into the work they were doing. We found that there was more money being spent than results being produced, which is the world over, the same with NGOs. Now, as far as education is concerned, there is a right to education. Government schools provide free education. Everybody is saying government schools are no good, so we need to supplement it with private schools. Nobody denies that we need to supplement it. Look at our numbers. But certainly government schools are providing a certain foundation. Have you any idea, sir, how many students we have in India today? 340 million in schools and colleges, 1/4 of our population. We must be doing something right. I've hit 85% literacy, thanks to efforts of friends like you, sons and daughters of India like you. I'm at 85%. By 2022, I'll be at 100. So we are moving in our own way, in our own simple way, but we are moving very fast on education. Now you can tell us, oh, we don't have the best universities in the world, we don't have the best schools, this school doesn't have this school doesn't have that. But within our country itself, Kerala has shown you the way, 100% literacy. And in dealing with the virus, they are the best. Therefore, education is so important when you deal with a natural disaster or calamity, and decisive leadership. Which you are from near Haridwar, sir? Are you from Uttarakhand?
Sorry, it's on mute, so he would not be able to respond now. Okay. Yeah, so because we have about 4 or 5 more questions, and we already crossed our time. So, but
I'm extremely sorry. Did I do it? Look, you get a TV guy. What do you expect him to do?
I know. I knew that very well. So I will request now. I'll get the order to who will ask the questions now. Professor Junzo Watada to begin with, and after that, Dr. Ashok Laha from US who is there, and then I have Dr. Sadar from UAE, and then Dr. Yamini. And then if there's any other hand, if we have the time limit. Dr. Junzo Watada happens to be a professor from Waseda University.
Dr. Deepak, thank you very much. Quite interesting and the suggestive talk. I consider my childhood when listening to your talk. So I think in my childhood, of course,
Ohio, sir, Ohio.
Konnichiwa. And it is the same philosophy, including India, China, or Asia, Japan. We have the attractive to follow natural momentum. But on the other hand, in my childhood, after industrialization, production, we can find some happiness beyond this production. So we did effort to industrialization in Japan. Also, in my childhood, we don't like to follow natural momentum. We should develop my own way by our effort. It is our Japanese life. But of course, happiness and the production, industrialization, GDP are different dimensions. Of course, like the Bhutan, we can live happiness depending on happiness. It is quite important, but the country cannot have important position in the world. So India has a good position in the world. So it is one way, industrialization, not only the happiness. Of course, people may happiness, but also Indian people are individual behavior like American and European. not like Chinese and Japanese. People are quite be moving the same way. And my question is, how should we do if we emphasize industrialization or GDP? Of course, placing the stress on happiness. But when Modi was selected as the president, he persuaded some female president of the poorer state to industrialization. He would like to bring some the industry there, but the female president denied to accept. Of course, it is one way, but we Japanese thought, why? We cannot understand. Can you explain such a way, such a point?
Thank you for your question, Professor. First, let me tell you that we have a natural affinity for Japan. The Buddhist link is only one of those, but then many spiritual, the influence of Hinduism in many of your temples, you still have Sanskrit shlokas that are recited. We have a total emotional connect between India and Japan. And what I told one of your leaders, I mean, our prime ministers meet every year. When I told one of your leaders that your median age is 47 now, you're an aging society. We laughed and I said, you've forgotten how to make babies. We'll teach you. We have the technology on making babies. Was meant to be a joke. And so what you have said is absolutely right. By the way, I must also tell you that I'm deeply influenced by Buddhism. My mother was a Buddhist, and my spiritual guide in New Delhi is Reverend Gyomyo Nakamura, who runs the World Buddhist Center in the nation's capital. He's Japanese, has been in India for 48 years. So we are so pleased to, when I go and see him, the serenity, the contentment. Of course, we have to satisfy our personal needs. You in Japan should know that. For you, the concept of balance is most important. You must balance between your needs, your mental, emotional, physical, and your spiritual needs. And that is what the world has to learn from Japan. Doesn't matter if you're growing at 1% or 1.5%. Beyond growth lies what, sir? Beyond growth lies contentment. What is the point of having 25 cars per home? There must be something beyond that. That is your contentment, if not happiness.
Yeah. I'll now request Professor Ashok Laha. Professor Ashok Laha is the CEO and the Managing Director for Intera IT. It's a US-based company. He spent 6 months in US. Currently, he's in India. We are happy to have him here. And he's also... He
can't go away till the 1st of July.
And he's also an adjunct professor at the Institute. And he's been an entrepreneur, and he's had a work life and then an entrepreneur. So I thought I'd just introduce, and then Ashok, if you can ask a question, please.
Go ahead, sir.
Professor Vohra, Dr. Vohra, thank you very much. The wonderful thing.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. No. I will be specific because as Dr. Agarwal mentioned that I run a company. I started my life working for somebody else, in the US.
You are from Bengal.
I'm a Bengal.
Yeah, your accent said, yeah. Go ahead.
I'm a Bengal, born in Calcutta. And then I went to US after graduation. I went to US. And when I was a student there, when I was in Calcutta, I came from although Laha family, they were a rich family, I come from the poor side of the rich family. So my happiness at that time frame was to go to US, become rich. Okay. And then I went to US after graduation and I studied quite a lot. And then I worked for a bunch of people in US. And then after that, I started my own company 20 years ago. The question I'm asking is that the trust factor, and that's where you're doing the research on it. I'll have to meet you probably later to the research. The trust is the most important thing. And when I see the US, trust is still very high.
Despite Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
Despite Mr. Trump.
Mr. Trump, okay. But, that's a different topic, But trust is very high in US, What means something, meetings start every time. But here, I don't see the trust. Now, my company, most of the people are in India. How can I people, make sure that people believe in a trust? How can I increase the trust factor? That lead to happiness. Because most of the people, they're right now running for what you say, Gucci's clothes and everything else, and money, you know. How to convert that one to a trust factor, believe in people.
You know, sir, first of all, Keman Achin, sir. Bhalo achi, sir.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, I'm a great fan of everything that is Bengali. And whenever I've been upset, then Gurudev Rabindranath Thakur's song has inspired me. Jati tore dakshane ka na ashte tobi ekla cholo re. That has been my motto, my song throughout my life. Important thing which I believe, which my research on trust suggests, that trust doesn't necessarily lead to development, nor does development induce trust. What really happens is a change in mindset, sir. And that change in mindset we are slowly beginning to see. The common feeling always now between the citizens and those who govern us was all the people who governed us always thought citizens are cheats. We thought those who govern us are crooks. The number of scams, the number of this, that, and the other, the damage that is done. A child, sir, you will realize, in any society in the world, starts crying, the mother picks it up, the child stops crying. That's because of the natural emotional trust that the child has in the mother. Now, why don't we have the same thing? If I'm down and out and the government gives me a revival package, why don't I trust that this is something good? I don't know the answer, sir. In the African countries that I've studied, on a scale of 1 to 10, trust on an average would be -3. They don't trust their governments at all. I don't know the reason. I mean, I do know the reason, but I wouldn't like to, discuss this here. In India, we find the level of trust is going up substantially after this particular unforeseen incident. One of the, you probably studied Bob Merton, the sociologist who talked about the law of unintended consequences.
Yes.
And one of the unintended consequences in India has been this rising level of trust. Jo sarkar kehti hai, shayad theek kehti hai. Let's do what these guys are saying. Otherwise, do you think you in Bengal were capable of this level of discipline? I mean, I've always said one Bengali has one opinion, two Bengalis have three opinions. Each has one and the two get together and form a third one. I knew the most culturally advanced people in the universe. And yet this concept of discipline and trust is what we are seeking to do. It will come, sir. It's a matter of time. India is only 72, 73 years young, sir. Give us time. It's coming. I'm seeing this everywhere among the younger people, the younger Indians. And we are privileged to have 65 crore, 650 million below the age of 28. Sir. These are the people we are targeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Be hopeful, sir.
Sure.
Stay blessed and stay safe.
I'm internally optimistic.
You have to be, sir. You can't be an Indian and not be optimistic.
Right.
Last three questions today. One is by Dr. Sadar from UAE. Then I'll open to Mr. Rajiv Saxena. He's joined as well a long time back. And then Dr. Yamini as the last.
Okay.
So Sadar, I'm unmuting you. Sadar happens to be an old alumni of the Indian Institute of Finance, and now he's based in UAE and working there as an analyst. More he can tell himself.
Nationality?
He's Indian. He's Indian, but based in Dubai.
How long have you been in Dubai, sir?
Sadar, just a second. I'm waiting for him. I think he's not responding. So
Okay.
I'll go on to Rajiv in the meantime. Just a second. Yes. Rajiv, if you can kindly ask.
Good afternoon, Professor Vohra.
Yes, sir.
It's been a pleasure to be one with you on this forum. And I'm thankful to Professor Aman. I'm a great fan of yours. Quite often I have heard your speech, which is on YouTube number of times. And every time I do that, in fact, I tell my children also to listen to it. It's such an optimistic statement for the country. And perhaps I have never come across from any leader or any teacher or any spokesperson. And thanks to you for giving that broad spectrum to the country and a sense of development, a sense of commitment, and a sense of belongingness to the nation. I personally, Dr. feel that our country somewhere, I'm not talking about the last 45 days or 30 days, that national belongingness perhaps had been missing for a very long time. And the lack of trust factor, as you have very rightly pointed out, perhaps was for that reason that we were so widely divided on linguistic pattern, on religious pattern, on state pattern, on regional pattern. And perhaps that has become a virtue for us to defy the nation, to defy the trust which we ought to have it. A lot of it perhaps is because of the character of the leaders of the nation after post-independence and post a certain point of time. And in the recent past, the developments, the scams, the frauds which have emerged, perhaps have led to that sense of insecurity amongst the nations and disbelievement in the leadership. During the course of your discussion right now, the deliberations which we have had, feel myself very blessed to have heard you today also. And do you think that this COVID-19 situation, and as you have very rightly pointed out, the last 30 days have been a revealing factor for the country to show that the development of that trust factor. Do you think that that is likely to continue even after that COVID-19 situation?
So you've asked me a very nice question. First of all, thank you very much. I'm deeply honored that you are participating in this conversation. You know, sir, I just want to take you back very quickly because Aman has told me to shut up in a few minutes. Keep quiet. All right, remember, sir, that we are 73 years young. And I've seen this in Africa when I research trust. In any colonial society, trust between the natives, if I can use that term, or the people of that country is always very low. Bharat mein kya hota tha, sir? You speak Hindi?
No, yes, very well, sir.
Okay. I'm sure everybody speaks Hindi, but let me just put this across to some Japanese friends. The first thing that the British did to inculcate in us was lack of trust for each other.
Sure.
Now, I've tried to understand the hierarchy that we have. You know, in some districts in India, many districts in India, the district officer is still called the collector. He used to be the collector to collect land revenue. Land revenue went out 30 years ago, but we still have the collector. And then there was a hierarchy of power. The highest an Indian could get was the Patwari, the village head. So people go to him and say, look, we want to build a well over here with our own money. And he was trained to say no. And then who could say yes? Go to the district collector, who's a white person.
Right.
So then you began instinctively to trust the white man because he would say yes. Yes. You began to feel that you can have much greater trust in that guy than in your own people. That is how never more than 100,000 British nationals in India were able to rule 30 crores. But there was no trust between them.
No. That's
now, it has taken us a long time to overcome that colonial legacy. When this prime minister came, one of the first things we did was check out all the old laws. And we found out about 30,000 that had never been implemented. Nobody even knew.
Nobody knew.
And we started looking at them because we just didn't have time. What I believe this government, and sir, again, I say it's not that I work for them, but what I genuinely believe they've done is shown that they are capable of telling the truth. All the private channels, there's more noise than news. For news, I go to the government channel, which reassures us. Somebody I heard, saying this is going to happen, that is going to happen. Won't it be 28 days? Or what about the level of testing, the number of people test? This is a bit of a joke. You have the Indian Council of Medical Research. Sir, we have the best doctors, engineers, scientists in the world. They are all over the world. People trust them. People respect them. This guy comes out and says, listen, we are going to be able to bend the curve. But in our private studio, Naji, I saw this happening. All the time you are seeing is, people out in the streets in Hyderabad, Chennai. Already 300 people are out. Bad, we'll get them back inside. But 130 crore are listening to what we are saying.
And they are believing also.
I believe this emotional connect. He first said, Jahan hai to Jahan. Now he said, Jaan bhi and Jahan. He's modifying what he's saying. He's reaching out to people. Now, are we going to extend the national lockdown beyond 3rd May? There's a very strong possibility. We'll just have to see what is happening.
Right.
We have shown, sir, the kind of unity and discipline we are capable of. 1971 was another example during the Bangladesh crisis, all of India came together. And we've come together again to defeat the Chinese virus. So I would not feel, I would not see any sense of loss of hope. So one thing that please spread this widely, and all of you who are listening, excessive pessimism does not empower you. It paralyzes you. It makes you feel hopeless and helpless. That's what I would like to say. That's my message to you. So spread this word. Don't be pessimistic. Naraz ho, nirash mat.
Nirash na. So very well said. So very well said. Dr. I would just like to interject. I am a hardcore congressman. And I have no doubt in saying so, or no hesitation in saying so. But of late, the way I have been writing on my Facebook and all, as you have very rightly said, that this COVID-19 situation has brought about a new sense of commitment in every one of us, and perhaps a new sense of trust as well. So people have started calling me that probably, yes, I am drifting towards BJP, or I have no political commitments as such. But yes, ideologically, as I have developed, I have grown from my university days to my profession, and now as a lawyer. I have had an inkling towards Congress. But as you have very rightly said, that हम निराश नहीं हैं, आज की तारीख में नाराज जरूर हो सकते हैं, लेकिन निराश नहीं, और आशावादी हैं, और उम्मीद करते हैं कि यही आशा रखते हैं कि आगे देश में एक दूसरे के ऊपर ज्यादा सम्मान के साथ, एक दूसरे के ऊपर विश्वास के साथ आगे बढ़े.
May God give you more strength. I'll just quote for you one conversation, Aman, if you give me 30 more seconds, with the Prime Minister of Lesotho. He's 86, about to lose his job. He asked me for some advice. I'm his special advisor. He said, Ambassador, how do I deal with this issue? And I said, sir, I have no idea. This is not my area of competence. He said, nahi, Hindustani ho, batao. So I said, acha saab, agar main aapki jagah hota, main ye karta. 3 mahine ke baad mein I had forgotten about it. So he called me to his office. I used to visit him once every 3 months. So he said, you know, Ambassador Deepak, what you told me, I implemented and the problem got solved. So I said, yeah, upar wale, thank you very much. Meri izzat bachali. Then as I was walking out, he turns around, he said, Ambassador Deepak, are you God? I said, no, sir, I'm an Indian, which is the next best thing. And he guffawed. It's a story he tells everybody that, you know, this guy stands in my office and says, I'm next to God. I mean, only second to God. Well, that's a little story. I said, this is our self-confidence is rising, sir. Our self-esteem is rising in India by the day.
Before I come to Yamini, I have Mohammad Halim Khanji. Mohammad Kalam has been Secretary of India, Ministry of Finance. And Mr. Khan, if you can ask a question.
Oh, I'd like to see you, Mr. Khan. Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak, sir.
Good afternoon. Aapko bhi Ramadan Mubarak ho. And I heard you and I really appreciated the positive vibes which you are creating, because no rhyme or reason, I find too much of negativity going around, and this doesn't behove a country which is aspiring to come out of its so-called the middle income trap. So if we don't remain positive, we don't remain helpful to each other, we don't understand each other, we don't try to trust each other, then this rise from middle income to higher income group is going to be much more difficult. So I thought you may like to share some views. The countries which have got trapped into the middle income area, and with all the promise which they exhibited to begin with, because of their the lack of trust or lack of positivity, they got created waves around themselves, and they could not achieve their potential. So I would like you to say something so that this especially the youth of the country is able to figure out that they have a long way to go, and this middle income trap is a very dicey thing, and we unless we earn that attitude to work together and to have trust among each other and the institutions which we have created, then this march is going to be much more difficult. So please don't feel as if we have already arrived. Yes, we have got the potential to arrive, but I think a lot more has to be done together with a lot of trust in ourselves and our institutions.
So first of all, are you from the civil service?
Yes, he's from the, so he was Secretary, Government of India, Ministry of Finance.
नहीं मैं पूछ रहा था. Sir, are you still there?
No, he's retired. Actually,
Are you still online?
Yeah, he's online. He's online. I put him on mute. Just a second.
Mute se hata do. Aman, let me listen to him, please, so that we can have this conversation.
Just a second.
Sir, if you can unmute him, please. Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Sir, कौन से साल के हैं आप IIS में?
77.
Okay, I beat you by 4 years.
Yeah, I know.
मैं 73 का मॉडल हूँ, बहुत पुराना मॉडल हूँ. Sir, there's nothing I can add to what you have said. You put it brilliantly that the two most important things for any nation, one is, you said, a positive outlook, second is confidence. And the virus, the Chinese virus attack has proved it to us in everything. पहली चीज जो विदेशी आपकी तोड़ता है जब आप पे हुकूमत करता है is your confidence. Sir, मैंने अपने जिंदगी में देखा है, क्षमा कीजिए, Aman, give me a few more minutes. मैंने ये देखा है, when I was a child, 6, 7 साल, 8 साल, my family had migrated from Pakistan, from Peshawar. I used to see my granddad every morning, अचकन पहनते थे सर, तैयार होके चले जाते थे. Child's curiosity कि दादा तू ये सोटी लेके पगड़ी पहन के सुबह रोज कहाँ जाता है? मैं जाता हूँ बीकानेर हाउस, because resettlement ministry or the Department of Resettlement has to give me land in India to compensate for what we left behind in Peshawar. तो हर रोज मैं सुबह देखता, मैंने कहा दादा तेरे को कुछ मिला है क्या? And then he turns out, अरे क्या बेटा ये क्या हिंदुस्तानी सरकार है, वो अंग्रेजों का जमाना. Now they had shattered his confidence, leading him to believe that everything that they had was superior to whatever we had. There was this governor of Lahore, sir, I was researching this, 1946 or something, I forget his name at the moment. तो वो जब जाने वाले थे, he called all his officers and said, हम जा तो रहे हैं बेटा, पर आप रोगे, because we were far superior to you in anything else and you will want us to come back. What? Clancy was the fellow's name. He was Punjab cadre in the Indian civil service. Now this kind of rubbish was intended to break our confidence. And that confidence, sir, is now coming back thanks to outstanding sons of India like you. The way you handle the economy, the way you put us on the path to development. So self-confidence breeds self-esteem, and self-esteem in turn leads to self-reliance. We'll break out of the middle income trap, there is no question. People like you will continue to guide our destiny. But itna कहना है sir, 200 साल तक, 200 years, 15% log, the people in Europe, they determined the destiny of the other 85%. क्योंकि हमसे गलतियां हुई थी सर, अब नहीं करेंगे सर. मैं कान को हाथ लगाता हूं, अब अपना इतिहास हम खुद लिखेंगे सर, ताकि कोई दूसरा ना लिख सके. And India needs more sons like you, more sons and daughters to carry us forward with this total commitment, total confidence and total positive spirit, sir. May God give you a lot of strength and please have a wonderful Ramadan, sir.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. All the best to you, sir.
I have the last question for today now, Dr. Yamini, not for you, but I'll introduce for the rest of the participants. She's the director of IIF Business School under AKTU and also Professor and Dean Research for Indian Institute of Finance. Dr. Yamini.
And also my daughter.
Yes, I'll for the rest of them.
So I believe that, you know, in the COVID-19 situation, the strongest force...
Chinese virus.
The Chinese virus. The strongest force of defense for India, which is a densely populated economy with 1.3 billion population, has been the strongest faith in the leadership and the solidarity of this country to believe what the leadership has said. And the government has, from time to time, has come up with relief packages right from the RBI to the finance minister, speaking about many other economic relief packages, which may then help the economy come over the crisis. What, in your opinion, should the government do to bring about a greater confidence among the youth as well as among the industrialists so that the economy can pick up again at the same growth levels that it was previously?
Dr. Yamini, you are one of the brightest minds in the world as far as development and economics is concerned. And apart from the fact that you're my daughter, I say this with total admiration, total sincerity. What the question you've asked is, how do we revive our growth? You're again defining growth in terms of that gross concept called gross domestic product. So we are all wanting to go back to that. People writing to me, which industries will survive so that, or revive because we want to invest or paisa bana. I believe what you rightly said, that government should instill confidence, which is coming through its measures. What we need is a stimulus of positivity, of confidence, and of trust. और अगर ये तीन हमारे stimulus आ गए, it's going to work well. Of course, industry will survive. Beta, do you remember we fought the war with Bangladesh in 71? 74 में India's inflation was 38%. We've been through a very difficult time. 65 में भोजन नहीं था हमारे पास. All of 66 मैं भूखा सोया हूँ Mondays को. So we've overcome all these crises. This is one we'll overcome. Indian industry is agile and resilient. We will be able to overcome. And the stimulus packages that the government is giving you, trust that. हमें पता नहीं है कि लॉकडाउन में क्या stimulus देना है. वही तो हम लोग सीख रहे हैं. We're learning on the job, right? आपने मास्क क्यों नहीं बनाया? ओ यार मेरे अंकल पहले तूने क्यों नहीं बताया कि कोरोना वायरस आने वाला है तो मैं मास्क भी इंपोर्ट कर लेता. I mean, with hindsight, it's very easy, नहीं? 2020 vision होता है. We are learning on the job, and I believe that we are doing very well. 0.45 deaths, fatalities per million. US is 150. Italy is about 70. France is about around the same. Greece is heading to that. Spain has crossed that. We are 0.45. कुछ तो सही किया है यार हमने. And of course, the stimulus will just have faith. Keep the faith.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beta. God bless.
Yeah, so we're going to be ending this session for today. Thank you, Professor Vohra. It's been such a great insight. We need to hold another session on trust someday. But before I end the session for today, I have two announcements to make. In fact, we are going to have a special session of Professor Deepak Vohra again, and all those interested in listening again, not on this topic, but a topic which is of current very importance. And I think it's critical for every one of us to know his point of view and his understanding, because he knows all sides, whether it is diplomatic or government or personal as an individual, and he interacts with all levels of people, including the army and all. Is the India's power of confidence to tackle Chinese coronavirus? Now, this is what he's going to speak on for about an hour, and I know it's not going to be an hour, it will be an hour or two. On from there, I'm for sure. But in any case, he's going to be speaking at 4 p.m. on Monday, the 27th of April, 2020. And I will request all of you to join. It's a free session. We are not charging anything at all. It's something which we want to do to bring in positivity. That's what we started this particular thing for, is to bring positivity in life, which Professor Vohra has highlighted beautifully today, time and again, and not only him, but a large number of other speakers in the past few days who have been talking about it. The other announcement which I want to make, and we'll be sending out the notices for this another hour or so. So please register so that we can have you in. The other announcement which I want to make is that tomorrow is going to be a break day for me. So there's no webinar on Sundays. But Monday we have Mr. Jay Shankar, who is currently the Executive Director of National Housing Bank, which is one of the largest government of India's agencies for structuring a developmental bank in housing area. And then we have a professor from Delhi University who is going to be speaking on the 28th of April, that is a Tuesday, Dr. Poonam Sethi. And then on the 29th, I have been able to get hold of a Hollywood actress who has been Miss Great Britain, and she has even owned this company for a small time, and she runs her own production house. She is a columnist to a couple of magazines, runs her own channel. I think it will be nice to listen to her perspective, because I found it very interesting when I interacted with her, which has nothing to do with finance per se. And it was a completely different perspective. Like Mr. Vohra brought a different perspective of trust. And as I said, I would like Professor Vohra to talk out some more time. I know I can always impound on his time, but I'd like to bring him on the issue of trust. And so
can you hear me, Aman? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you haven't. So as I leave this meeting, first I want to say the Indian Institute of Finance is the best in the universe. You guys have taken this initiative amazing. But Allama Iqbal ke shabd ke saath khatam kar raha hu. Yunan or Misr Roma, that is Greece, Egypt and the Italian thing. Yunan or Misr Roma submit gaye jahan se. Abhi tak magar hai baki naam o nishan hamara. Kuch baat to hai ki hasti mitti nahi hamari. Sadiyon raha hai dushman daure zaman hamara. Kyunki sare jahan se acha Hindustan hamara.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And you're going to end the meeting now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.